Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 1.1. This is video 1 in this chapter, as we can see there. So in this chapter we have 4 learning objectives. This is very much just a soft introduction to the course. We talk about what is a business, entrepreneurship, and things like that. We'll also be talking about the business plan, which is business management toolkit number 5, and we'll do that within the slides for this video. So firstly, what is a business? So the actual definition of a business is an organization that uses resources to produce a good or service that hopefully satisfies the need of customers. Now, as you can see on the right, this kind of summarizes what a business does through the production process. And what a business will do is they'll take what are called factors of production or resources, or however you want to call them. Factors of production is more of an economics term, but we do use it in business. And we use inputs, we put them through the production process, and then that gives us an output. And just to specify, an output can be a good or a service. So I'm just trying to move me. Where's me going to go? Me as a person is going up into the top right. And so a good is something that can be touched. It's a product such as an iPhone, a table. A service is something that you buy or we use, which you cannot touch it. So it's something that somebody does for you. And those will be things like banking, education, go to the hairdressers and things like that. And what are the inputs that businesses can use? Well, we can break them down into these. So we've got land. So land is the use of the land itself, but it's also anything in the land. So it's the natural resources from inside and on the land. So things such as oil extraction, coal, metal, but also things like fruit farms. If you grow cattle or chickens on the land, then that would be a natural resource. Labor is people, so the effort that people put into the work for you. Capital is physical capital, which is basically non-natural resources. So things like machinery that you use. This is you don't find machines in as a natural resource, but it's also things that when other companies have produced a product that's can be bought by your business. So cheese is not something we find in nature, but a cheese company will make that cheese and then sell it to, say, another company that uses cheese in their production, such as a restaurant, or in this example, a pizza. And entrepreneurship is when someone collects all these resources together and actually starts a business and takes responsibility for producing that product. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, another way of saying it is businesses add value, and there's this thing called added value, where basically the output is worth more than the sum of the inputs. So if you look at a car company, for example, a car company will have lots of inputs: people, machinery, metal, rubber, etc. And what the car company will do is they'll take all those inputs, manufacture it into a finished car. But what you'll see, hopefully, is that the value of the car that they sell is worth more than the value of the inputs. And that's because the business has added value. They've actually transformed those inputs into something that people want to buy. And that allows them to make profit and also to satisfy the needs of consumers. Also, if you think about it, we've all gone and bought fruit that's been cut up in a box. And all that a company has done there is they bought some fruit, cut it up, and put it into a box. And then people go and buy it. And what you'll find is that the value of the box is more than the value of the fruit and the box. So that company has added value, and people will usually buy that. So without businesses, we have to do everything ourselves. So if you want a car and there are no car businesses, then you can't have a car unless you do it yourself. So businesses satisfy all of those needs and wants that customers have. And along the way, they hopefully make a profit, but not all businesses need to make profit, but we'll get there. So these are all businesses. So Apple, iPhones obviously is a business, but then Barcelona is a football team, is a business. The service they produce is football, and people go and watch the football games. They have players, they have capital. FIS is a business. We produce education here. Now, FIS is a not-for-profit business, but it's still a business. Oxfam is a business. They collect donations from people and then they use that to go and help people. And then the RNV in Germany is it's a transport service, and they provide transport for people around Germany. So these are all businesses. Okay, next thing to look at is the primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary sector, which you may have done in other subjects before. And so businesses can operate in any of these sectors of the economy. So, firstly, as the primary sector, primary mean first, is the extraction of natural resources or harvesting of natural resources. And this is similar to land we talked about earlier, where anything from in the land or on the land, if a business is operating with that, then they will be operating in the primary sector. So if there's an oil company that's looking for oil and extracting oil from the ground, and that would be operating in the primary sector. A coffee farm would be growing coffee on the land is primary sector. Extraction of metals, a fruit farm, etc., etc. The next sector is the secondary sector, and this is the manufacturing sector. And what the manufacturing sector will do is they will take natural resources and then they will turn that into final products. So, for example, a clothing company will take cotton, things like that, and then using that to produce clothes. Mobile phones will take plastic, metal, glass, things like that, and then use that to produce phones. The tertiary sector, tertiary means third, is the service industry, and this is your services. So things like banking, insurance, education, tourism. These are things which we buy and we use, but they're non-physical. We can't touch these things, and they're things that people do for us. Now, there is another one which I'd never heard about before doing business. Is called the quaternary sector, and this is the sector involved in intellectual and knowledge-based activities. And this is things like research and development, computing, and also drug research. And as you can see in Germany over the years, this measures the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, the share of the economy. So generally what you'll see is as an economy develops, then the service sector will get bigger, and the tertiary and the primary and secondary sectors will get smaller. So you can see, go back to 1950 in Germany, the primary sector was about 25% of the economy, but over time the primary sector has got smaller and smaller in Germany. And you can see that the grey one is the service sector. The tertiary sector has got bigger over time. So the impact on business is that 70 years ago, there are a lot more businesses operating in the primary sector with things like fishing, extracting oil. I don't know if Germany has any oil, but that sort of thing. But over time, you can see that there's more and more tertiary businesses, such as banking. Obviously, in Frankfurt, banking is quite significant. Something with a developing economy, so China, you can see going back to 1978, the primary sector in China was a lot higher at 40%. But again, as China has developed, then the primary sector has got smaller and smaller. And you can see that the secondary sector has got bigger and bigger, but it was already fairly big at 30%. And the tertiary sector is starting to increase. And what you would expect, were it to follow the patterns of other countries, is over time the secondary sector will get smaller and smaller, and this green tertiary sector will get bigger and bigger. Okay, final thing for this video is, what is an entrepreneur? We mentioned it earlier. So an entrepreneur is someone who takes a financial risk to start and manage a new company. And in general, they do it in return for profit, but not always. Later in the course, we'll get on to non-for-profit organizations, social enterprises, etc. So profit is not always the primary objective. But in general, an entrepreneur is someone who starts a business in order to get profit. And in order to do that, they're taking a financial risk. The financial risk is that maybe they put their own money in, and if the company goes bankrupt, they'll lose that. But also, if the company goes bankrupt, they may lose more than the money that they put in. And we'll get onto that in a later chapter. And these two people here are both entrepreneurs. So you probably know Elon Musk, Tesla, X. I almost said Twitter then, but X. He started a number of businesses, put his own money in, taken large financial risks. and currently is the world's richest man. He might not be anymore, but he was at one certain point. This person here is the owner of a fruit shop, and this person is also an entrepreneur. The reason is because when they started the fruit shop, they put their own money in. If the company goes bankrupt, they're going to lose that money, so they're taking a risk. They're started and they're currently managing the business, and hopefully they make a profit. So when you walk down the high street of a town, all of those small shops are opened and run by entrepreneurs as well. So entrepreneurs don't need to be big famous people. There are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of entrepreneurs all around the country. Now, in general, we won't go into a lot of detail about this, but I just Googled successful entrepreneur characteristics, and this is what came up. So if you are interested in starting your own business, then these are what, from a Google search, were deemed the most popular characteristics. So things like knowledgeable, open-minded, ambitious, hungry. Now, what I will say is that I think a lot of these characteristics do help if you want to be an entrepreneur, but you don't need you don't need all of these in order to become an entrepreneur. So innovative, you don't necessarily need to be innovative to become an entrepreneur, but it's probably something that might help. So don't feel like you look at these and think, well, I'm not innovative, so I can't be an entrepreneur. Any of us can be an entrepreneur. So yes. Right, there we go. Those are, we've done about 2/3 of this chapter, and I will finish there.